had to do was play 2 removal spells, and he died.
Right, and not to rag on Daniel, Tyler Phelps had some pretty fortunate draws in that last game. He had four removal spells in the first 4 turns, which is exactly what he needed.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now we have Mr. Robert Rusch on your left playing Bant Hexproof, and this main deck looks almost identical, if not so, to the one that made the top 4 of the Star City Open in Somerset last weekend. Danny Lee playing Jund, and we had him on camera earlier. A pretty stock Jund. He has the 1 Vampire Nighthawk, which we discussed in the deck breakdown before the top 8 started. 2 Sire of Insanity, a Rakdos Return, neither of which are going to be too relevant here. The sideboard cards coming in for Danny Lee, I would assume, would be Gaze of Granite, and that is like a huge way for Jund to really interact with these hexproof decks, because not only do you get some of their creatures, but you have this way to kill just the early enchantments if they you don't have a way to actually deal with Geist of St. Trap.
Right.
You could still kill their ethereal armors and their spectral flights on X2, still hit their invisible stalkers and mana creatures, and you put up a couple creatures in front of a Geist of St. Trap and you're fine. It looks like Robert Rusch this game has mulliganed to 5. But he is up a game, so he has one to give.
Yep, he's up a game, he's on the draw, so the mull to 5 might not be as devastating as it might otherwise be, because what he's really looking to do is just put together a certain few cards. All he needs is a Stalker, an Unflinching Courage, and then something like a Rancor, and that's it.
Yep. The Hexproof deck, it has 2 draws. It has more than that, but the main 2 draws that the deck will get are Geist of St. Trap or Invisible Stalker paired with a ton of enchantments, or it'll get the draw that features Fencing Ace and Voice of Resurgence. Now, the Voice of Resurgences are going to be pretty good against Danny Lee, because he doesn't have access to Pillar Flame main deck. However, he has 2 after board, which could come in handy against those Voices as well as the Fencing Aces. But if he assembles, a large Invisible Stalker or Geist of St. Trap, the only way that Danny Lee really has to interact with that is the 1 Abrupt Decay, the 2 Lilianas, and the 1 Gaze of the Granite.
Yeah, so it looks like Robert just has an Avacyn's Pilgrim to Danny Lee's 2 lands, and we'll see what Rob has for turn 2 here.
Yeah. It is important to note that Danny Lee can occasionally Miracle Bonfire the Damned and really do a lot of work to kill some of the early creatures, and if they're not that big, if he miracles it for 3 or 4, can sometimes get them. However, if an Ethereal Armor ever goes onto Geist of St. Trap and makes it too big for Bonfire to kill, it's going to be incredibly difficult for Danny to win. But this looks like the Voice of Resurgence draw, where he could have cast a Geist, he had access to it. Instead, just has the Voice of Resurgence, which is a resilient creature, so long as Danny Lee doesn't have Pillar Flame.
Right, and he only has access to 2, so it's unlikely that he has it.
Yeah.
And
he does have the Liliana of the Veil,
wow,
which looks super bad against a Voice of Resurgence. But
and here you see just how powerful the Voice is, especially against these 1-for-1 removal spells. It's not good.
Yeah. It seems like Robert has cited in his 1 Feeling of Dread on the left, which you can see poking out of his hand there, to help get cards like Huntmaster and its compatriot out of the way, as well as making Thragtusk not so much of a blocker. So after the Voice of Resurgence gets putrefied on the main phase, so that he doesn't get the extra token, he gets the original token.
Right, and the judge getting that for Rob, he hasn't forgotten. There it is.
Alright, so if he plays a creature here, he's going to be able to attack for approximately 4 damage, assuming he doesn't have an additional way to pump it up. If he has some way to make it big here, Danny's going to really need to draw something to deal with that, since we can't really see his hand, although I saw a Huntmaster of the Fells and a Liliana of the Veil. It might be multiple Huntmasters.
Looks like Strangleroot Geist out of the board for Robert Rusch.
Yeah.
Definitely a powerful tool against things like Liliana, Tragic Slip, Abrupt Decay.
I mean, I feel like the only card in this situation that would be good against this draw from Robert is Pillar Flame, because all the other traditional removal spells just look super bad. Huntmaster of the Fells being one of the cards that can help grind him back in this game, although none of them are really able to match up well against that elemental token unless Robert decides to attack with everything, which seems foolish.
Yeah, I don't think he'll do that, and the Feeling of Dread's really going to put a crimp in Danny Lee's plans.
Yeah. So, looks like there's no way he's going to Liliana here, right?
I can't see
Oh,
that
he has a
being right play.
bonfire. He's going to bonfire for 1.
Okay. Well,
And what that's going to do is kill
Wow.
everything.
Yeah.
Because with the undying effect of Stringeru Geist on the stack, it's going to kill the Abyssus Pilgrim and deal 1 damage to the token. And then there's going to be no creatures in play other than the token, and it's going to be a 1/1 until the Stringeru Geist comes back into play.
Exactly, and that's the interaction they're talking about right now. So
Right.
undying on the stack, state-based effects get checked, elemental token gets binned.
Yep. All right, so we're getting that out of the way. Going to put a dice on that Geist of St. Traft. And, we're seeing just how powerful Bonfire can be. Just Bonfire for 1 took care of a board that looked like it was going to be very hard for him to deal with. Hopefully he has a follow-up play here to apply some pressure, coming back from that mulligan to 5. Raincore's a good start with that. Ooh, and Spectral Flood.
Wow.
So he's going all in here. Unfortunately, Danny Lee has a Liliana in hand, so he's just going to take 7 damage here down to 7, and then Robert's going to push his creature to the bin, if you will.
Wow.
Come
Regular LSV over here.
Yeah. It's actually Robert Rusch, but the screen says Robert Push, unless one of these is wrong. I'm not sure.
I don't think he spelled his own name wrong on the deck list. I'm going with our director
You never know.
on this one. So Liliana makes Robert sack a creature. Liliana's on 1. Robert, though, more importantly, is no board.
Yeah. He does get the Rancor back, which is important to note, but again, he doesn't have any creatures to go with it, so.
Yep, he just has that Feeling of Dread, which is looking awfully lonely right now.
Yeah.
I don't like that card in this matchup too much.
I mean, there are times where you have a Geist of St. Traft and you really want to,
Push through.
yeah, push through the damage.
Right.
I didn't really want to say it.
You really
I'm
want to
sorry.
rush your opponent
Yeah, I
as
don't
much
wanna-
as possible.
Yeah. So I can't do this anymore. No, so I mean, there are times where it's good, but I mean, this is not the draw where it's good. It's good when you have Geist of St. Traft. It's not good when you have the Voice of Resurgence and the other creatures.
Yeah, and that's just the thing about the Bant Hexproof deck, isn't it? So much of its deck is good when you have X, or
Yep.
bad if you draw this half. Stuff like that.
I mean, it's very similar to Naya Blitz in the regard that you have these draws that are unbeatable, but you also have these other draws that are just they stink.
Yeah, like this draw, it's really good if Danny didn't have Pillar, if Danny didn't have Bonfire. It's really good, but
He ended up having one of the two, and then that was, basically what put the nail in the coffin. I mean, to be fair, Danny did have to have, a specific set of cards because just the Bonfire wasn't even enough because he did have a lethal flying Geist of St. Traft, or no, Stringeru Geist after all the Bonfire was said and done, and Danny had to have, the 3rd removal spell to deal with it, and fortunately he had it, but, that's just something that the Bant Hexproof decks just have to live with. Like if their opponents choose to interact with them, it's very hard for them to win games. So I'm not sure what the hesitation is here. He has a follow-up Thragtusk. Maybe he wants to resolve the Thragtusk before attacking, just to make sure he can attack with both guys and doesn't randomly die to a Stringeru Geist. But his hand's pretty stacked. I don't think he's going to lose here.
Nope, the +1 on Liliana is going to make Rob discard land, Hallowed Fountain.
And a follow-up Thragtusk should be game. So it looks like we're going to see another game.
I thought Danny Lee was scooping for a minute there.
Well, I think his opponent might have said something to the effect of, yeah, it's probably game. And then so he started to pick up his cards, but,
Yeah, a Geist of St. Traft, no, wouldn't do it. Nothing would really do it here for Robert. He's going to make Danny Lee go through the motions, though, going to make him kill him. Who knows? People screw up all the time.
It's kind of hard to screw up the turn my guy sideways. So.
Yeah. Magic's a tough game, though.
That's true.
I've seen people screw that up before.
There's also, like playing for more information because, again, Danny did make a slight mistake here by activating a Liliana of the Veil to, make him discard an extra card. Oh, I guess he also did have the flashback of Feeling of Dread, but I don't think that... it's just going to be, over in a turn or two.
Yeah,
So.
By playing it out, he can figure out how his opponent sideboards.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
His
You
opponent
get a little more information.
Like a Syra of Insanity, where you figured they'd never have it after board, so all of a sudden, game 3, you can play around that.
Yep. All right, so it looks like Danny Lee is going to take game 2 off of Robert's mulligan to 5 and a couple of strong removal spells. I'll say that.
Yep. So Danny Lee showing why Jund is such a powerhouse in this format.
Yep,
It's so consistent.
Right, and like we saw, Jund win last match in the hands of... Where did the deck list go?
Are you talking about the top four? Tyler Phelps.
Yeah, when in the hands of Tyler Phelps. I mean, we already saw it dismantle Danny Battles, and just all he needed was a couple removal spells, and his opponent's deck just dismantled itself. But yeah, the consistency of Jund is really what gives you a lot of better draws than your opponent, because all of your cards are great on their own. Like your removal spells aren't great against some of the controller decks in the format, but you also have backbreaker cards against those decks. When you have Sire of Insanity, you have Rakdos Return, and again, those cards not being great against aggro decks. But I mean, when you play so many strong cards that are decent against both, like Thragtusk and Huntmaster of the Fells, that's really where you start to just pull ahead.
Yeah. So would you say that Jund is the most powerful deck in the format?
I mean, it doesn't have synergy, and I think that's my main problem with the deck. I don't ever want to call a deck a best deck in a format if it's not synergistic, if it's just a collection of good stuff. Like, for example, if anyone remembers Mythic, that was the deck that Zvi Mashwitz brewed for Pro Tour a couple years ago, and it was just this Lotus Cobra, Neither Reliquary into Sovereigns of Lost Alara deck, and all it did was play these gigantic monsters, and it used like a ton of mana acceleration, and Jace the Mind Sculptor, and Elspeth Nightmare.
Just a bunch of great cards.
Yeah, it was just a collection of awesome cards, and it was fueled by things like Noble Hierarch and Lotus Cobra. But my problem with a deck like that is that, sure, you're going to have games where you just win. There are going to be people who win tournaments with that deck, but you're not like a fairy deck. You're not like a Ravager Affinity deck where you're completely synergistic. Every part of your deck is working in tandem with the rest of your deck in order to accomplish this one goal of winning the game. I mean, sometimes your cards can win the game on their own, and that definitely has merit when you're deck building. But honestly, I'm much more of a fan of a deck that is, synergistic. And Robert Rusch playing Bant Hexproof, the deck's synergistic, but the problem is that he doesn't have enough cards with Hexproof to really, clinch that feeling of synergy that I would want from a deck like that. If he had one more 2 or 3 drop creature that had Hexproof that was solid, I think that then the deck would be over the top. But instead, we have to play Fencing Ace and Voice of Resurgence, both of which are great in their own right. But when half of your deck does one thing and the other half does something else, it makes for some really mediocre draws.
Yeah, it's tough. With one more Hexproof creature, this deck would be a monster. But
Yeah.
as it is right now, with only 8, you're almost guaranteed to see one every game if you're...
There's no such thing as a guarantee in Magic. Last 8 cards of your deck, man.
Yeah, exactly. But no, if you had 12, the deck would be very good because you would almost always have one. Coupled with mulligans, you could virtually guarantee it.
Do you remember the name of the new Hexproof flyer? Is a blue, white, and 2 for a 3/2 flying Hexproof. Something Lawmaker or Law Mage or...
No, I don't.
The name escapes
remember.
me at the moment, but I know that Jerry Thompson wrote in a recent article about maybe playing 1 or 2 of those at the top end of your curve in order to just have more Hexproof guys, and the fact that he flies is not bad either. So
yeah, flying Hexproof is powerful.
Ascended Law Mage.
Ascended Law Mage, that's what it is.
Sorry. Yeah, so sorry about that. But yeah, Ascended Law Mage, it's a little slow, obviously, but if you're falling behind against a deck like Naya Blitz or Mono Red, just putting an Unflinching Courage on a 3/2 flyer is big game. It's going to be really hard for a lot of decks to interact with you when you start doing stuff like that. But yeah, maybe it's just something to keep in mind. Maybe not something you really want to go too deep on, but the deck doesn't seem, or the card doesn't seem that bad for the deck.
No, it's really not. Maybe a sideboard card for the Jund matchup, things like that.
You
Maybe
just need
one
more
main, 2 side. Yeah. Take out these Fencing Aces. These things are just...
I remember there was an interview with the guy last week who made top 8 or made top 4 with the deck, and he said that Fencing Ace was actually pretty good against decks like Junk Reanimator or generally decks that don't have a lot of removal spells. He can just do a ton of damage when you just put a Rancor on him. That's like 6 just by itself. And then when you start adding more to it, like Ethereal Armor, and then even Unflinching Courage, how is it even remotely possible to race an Unflinching Courage on a Fencing Ace?
I don't think it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's just...
You kill it or
huge.
you lose.
Yeah, so Robert here starts off with a Breeding Pool, doesn't have a Mana Accelerator, but doesn't really need one if he's got 2 drops. And it looks like he's got Stringaroo Geist.
Okay, that's pretty good against Jund.
Yep.
Not his ideal 2-drop, but he'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, against a lot of the draws, especially ones featuring Liliana the Veil from Danny, Stringer Geist is the 2-drop that you want. I mean, maybe it's not quite as good as Voice of Resurgence, but it certainly, gets the job done in a lot of scenarios. Farseek here for Danny, going to allow him to start casting 4-drops next turn, maybe a Huntmaster to help stifle the bleeding from the Strangaroo Geist.
Yep, so Farseek's going to resolve, going to basically take the play from Robert, albeit turn 3 instead of turn 1. But this is going to let Robert have this turn 3 unmolested. If he could drop a Geist, it would be amazing. Even if he could only suit up the Strangleroot with an enchantment, that'd still be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would obviously prefer it to be something like a Rancor. That way, if your Strangaroo Geist dies, you get, your Rancor back as well as the Strangaroo Geist coming back into play. But yeah, Geist is saying trapped here with an empty board on his opponent's side, and he just drew an Ethereal Armor, so that seems really bad for Danny if he's got it.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, with the Strangaroo Geist, Danny is going to need to have a good way to deal with a Strangaroo Geist and then have a follow-up good answer to a Geist of Saint Traft, and that seems real tough.
No, there it is.
Yeah, especially now that he has an Ethereal Armor, there's no way like a Thragtusk or even that Vampire Nighthawk in his hand or a Huntmaster of the Fells can profitably block the Geist of Saint Traft because it's just going to get first strike right out of the game.
Yeah, so Danny Lee pulls the Olivia to the front of his hand. He figures maybe that's the card to save him. Maybe Robert doesn't have one of his 12 enchantments, he says, but I don't know, 16 enchantments.
Yeah, there's way more than... Oh, Rancor doesn't really do the trick, but Ethereal Armor, which Robert has, is going to make this really awkward. I would assume that he would just play Vampire Nighthawk as a, if Robert has a Rancor or something like that, he can still gain value and trade. But if he plays Olivia and then Robert just goes Unflinching Courage, things are going to get real bad in a hurry. So I would expect Danny to figure that out and play the Vampire Nighthawk, which he does.
Yep, he goes with your play. The Nighthawk leaves red-green open for... Is this a Searing Spear?
No.
Oh, okay. Arbor Elf.
Just a mana dude.
Alrighty, he passes it right back to Robert. And this is a big turn for him. If he has 2 enchantments, it's going to be really tough for Danny. Even just the Ethereal Armor, though.
Agreed. The Ethereal Armor itself should put Danny in a tough spot. It's a lot of damage coming at him. The Vampire Nighthawk able to effectively prevent, some damage, but it also looks like Robert has a Spectral Flight too, so he's going to Ethereal Armor the Geist of Saint Traft, and then probably Spectral Flight it too. Yeah.
Wow.
And now what this is going to do is going to make Arbor Elf, as well as every other ground-pounding creature, unable to block Geist of Saint Traft. And I just expect him to attack with this guy and the Angel token. And, Danny's not really going to have a whole lot of ways out of this. No, he needs to peel a Pillar Flame, immediately followed by a Liliana of the Veil. And without that sequence of plays and possibly a way to deal with another creature should Robert follow up with another creature, I don't think he's going to win. Yeah,
Gaze of Granite is really the only non-Liliana answer that Danny Lee has here.
Yeah, and he doesn't have does he? Yeah, he does have another land in hand, so Gaze of Granite could potentially get him back in the game. It's just a singleton out of his sideboard, though, so that one's going to be... I mean, I guess it's easier to draw the 1-of than to draw a subsequent of a 2-of, followed by another 2-of.
Right.
So a couple of ways for him to win, but it seems really tough.
Yeah, Danny Lee on the back foot here. He took a whopping 10 damage that turn, 4 from the Angel and 6 from the Geist.
Yep.
So he's at 6.
Yep, but he does have a couple Thragtusks. He can go up to 11. He can block the Angel token with the Vampire Nighthawk and prevent basically 6 of the damage, since he blocks 4 of it from the Angel and gains 2 from the lifelink.
Right. So Danny Lee not out of the game, but his options are running out really fast.
Yeah. I think at this point he just has to have the Gaze of Granite. Otherwise, game's going to be over.
And Danny Lee tanking on his turn. He has a Farseek. He has an Olivia. He has a Thragtusk.
And a pair of Thragtusk, and then that Overgrown Tomb. So Thragtusk going to put him to 11, but he doesn't have any pressure on Robert, so it's not like the Thragtusk is even going to do all that much.
Right.
And it looks like he's going to shock himself down to 9, playing Olivia. All right, and this is actually a pretty heads-up play, I think. So what now he can do is he can ping the Strangaroo Geist and then, maybe hit it 2 more times or something next turn and give himself, a way out, whereas playing the Thragtusk is just, like, basically conceding the game. Maybe the Olivia, he can get himself to a point where Well, maybe never mind. He's got Unflinching Courage.
Ooh, wow.
As we say in the business, boys, that's game. So this giving him trample here, I think, should put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I think so too. The unflinching courage on the Geist. It looks like Robert is just doing the math in his head. He does not want to lose to any kind of Liliana nonsense. He wants to make sure that he doesn't leave Danny Lee any outs here.
Yeah. So if he suits up the Geist with the Courage, that's what 7, 2, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it'll be a
10.
a 9, I think. Right. All right. So
The
it's a
Ethereal Armor will
2
get
originally. Ethereal Armor is a +3, and it gets a +3 and then a +2 and a +2, and it's already 2/2. So
Yeah, so
I think it'll be. Come on, buddy. It's 9. I just did the math. 2 + 2 + 2 + 3.
2 plus
9.
2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3.
Why is that +3 +
Because
3?
it has a 3-mana casting cost, and I can't do math. You forgot about that.
What are you talking about?
Right.
You're confusing me right
You're,
now.
I
All
use the
right,
unflinching
so-
courage. 9/9 Geist of Saint Traft.
There we go.
Yep.
That's what.
We're on the same page.
What are you
now.
doing to me?
We're on the same page now. This is why I'm behind the camera. I'm not playing.
That's fair. All right, so Geist is going to be a 9/9 Trampler, which, along with the Angel, I think is actually just lethal in play. The attack with the Stranguru Geist, I'm not positive on this one, but I mean he can still just shoot it with the Olivia, so I guess it's not a big deal regardless. Like, it's gonna get die and get undying anyway.
Yeah,
So,
and there's
but yeah,
the
the
hint.
trample. Yep, and that's Robert Rusch taking the match against Danny Lee.
Yeah, congratulations to Robert Rusch and his Bant Hexproof deck.